Full bows as a violin beginner. Should you or should you not do full bows? We're going to tackle this very topic in today's video. The sponsor for today's violin tip is Bandzoogle. Bandzoogle is an amazing website platform for musicians, which I'll get to later on in the video. Let's talk about full bows. Full bows are not ideal for beginners. I'm going to tell you why. For a long time as a teacher, I've been sold the idea that you have to teach full bows to a violin beginner. But I'm going to tell you one specific reason why you shouldn't. And if you're a self-learner, this is a really good violin video for you. If you have your violin with you, please follow along because this is going to be a really important tip that you find out today. So when you do a down bow, your teacher is probably having you do a full bow all the way to the tip. Now, sometimes, and I would say maybe most of the time, when we have a beginner violin bow hold, I'm actually going to move back a little bit so that way you can see my full arm. So when we do a full violin bow, we end up going over the fingerboard. Now this is important because when you do a down bow and you end up this way, your up bows are not going to be sounding as strong as the down bows. That's because you don't have enough grip when you have a crooked bow. Now, if you are an advanced violinist, then you are able to manipulate different sound colors on the violin. You can have a straight bow, you can have a crooked bow. Itzhak Perlman is one of those great violinists that plays with a crooked bow all the time, and he sounds amazing. We're not talking about Itzhak Perlman level, but we are talking about how you can get a solid sound with a straight bow. So that way you look polished, you look awesome while you play. So when we are playing a down bow, I recommend to not go all the way to the tip. Here's the reason why. Because your arm is still not accustomed to extending this forearm and actually bending the wrist. Now, if you really think about it, we're not used to grabbing things from the side this way. We're usually picking up something like in front of us, like with a forehand or backhand like this. Very rarely do we try to reach something with the side. And that's why it's such a very awkward feeling for violin beginners, because not only are you tensing the wrist here, but you're also trying to figure out how this forearm and bicep relationship works with the tension, because sometimes when you pull the muscle, it's an uncomfortable feeling that not a lot of violin beginners are used to. When we do a down bow, once we get to around the upper middle bow, almost always I see this. Because when a teacher tells a student or a pupil that you have to use full bows, they forget that full bows also have to be straight full bows. So when we do a full bow, we want this, but most of the time we don't get that. So what would I do if I were in your shoes? What I would do is I would do a straight bow until you can't do a straight bow no more. So if you have to if you're not used to extending this arm yet, now look at how my wrist is. It's kind of bent a little bit. If you know how to reset your hand, then this is not going to be a problem. But if you are struggling with this motion here, then I suggest that you start not in the frog and not in the middle, because I've seen teachers start from the middle, and you can see how I'm doing a straight bow this way. But I've tried this approach with students in the past, and because they're in the upper half, they end up doing a runner's arm. But ideally, you want the elbow to be quiet, and you just open the door and close the door. I don't recommend that approach, just because even though you're getting a nice sound, the technique won't serve you in the long run because you're going to be stuck in the upper half. You don't know how to utilize a full bow. So here's what I suggest. Typically, we have a balance point of the violin bow around here. This is our balance point. If we can start slightly lower below the balance point, right over here, so that way our elbow is slightly bent, and then I would recommend stopping at the upper middle bow. Very important that we realize that. So go from here to there, and then go the opposite way. Now, what you're teaching your arm to do is your arm is going to be bent. We've talked about on the channel, if you're new to the channel, we talked about a little swan curve here to have a little bit of bend. I don't recommend an elbow so high up here and an elbow this way. It should just feel kind of natural. If you're kind of like relaxing your hands and your arms, it should look something like this with the elbow slightly lifted. So we're doing a down bow. And then usually this is around the spot where students go the opposite way and they bring their elbow back. Don't do that. You want to start here and go to the upper middle bow. And the same goes for the up bows. You want to be able to stop the bow this way. And something that I've come across recently with students, that they do a straight bow on the down bow, but they end up going this way. So you want to go back up the same way you went. So you are going down, then you're going to go up. And you're not utilizing a lot of bow. You're probably utilizing maybe 4 to 5 inches of bow. That is the key here. Straight bow, especially when you're working on sound production as a beginner, you're just trying to get a consistent sound. You might experience a sound called ponticello, which means it's kind of a sound really close to the bridge. It's kind of like an icy sound. You're not going to get, you'll get this type of sound. That's a result of you sliding your bow all over the place. So you want to make sure that you have the appropriate arm weight to do a down bow and an up bow. Because if you do that, then you'll have a lot of success. Before we get to the final element of this exercise, I do want to thank today's video sponsor, Bandzoogle. Bandzoogle is an amazing website platform to build your website as a musician. I have used Bandzoogle for so many years now, and I'm happy that they're collaborating on this channel just to get the word out, because it's a really amazing deal, has tons of great features for working class musicians and teachers. If you are a teacher specifically who's trying to open up a private studio, then this is a great way to have everything in-house, to have your email in-house, to actually have parents and students pay for lessons through Bandzoogle, through their third-party apps. And you just have everything in one place, which is so convenient. You can sell your music, you can blog, you can do all kinds of things. And as a matter of fact, I'm putting up some performances on my website. So make sure that you are going to ericmugala.com to check out some performances, and you can take a look at how the layout is on the Bandzoogle template. I prefer a very basic template. You can just insert some very basic information about yourself, about who you are, what you do, and some music that you want to sell. Or you can be more detailed like I am. You can just put a lot of content but keep the template really simple. So go to bandzoogle.com for a trial. If you don't like the trial for 30 days, then there's no credit card needed. But if you do like the service, if you think it's going to be really valuable for you, I encourage you to use promo code EricViolin to get a discount on your annual subscription of Bandzoogle. Now, the most important thing to realize when you are practicing the bow, especially a straight bow, and not make it crooked towards the upper half, is making sure that the bow is perpendicular to the string. That's number one. But also you are really trying to feel out what a straight bow is. Now, if you're having trouble and you don't have access to a mirror, here's what I suggest. You have two straight lines. One line is the fingerboard, where the fingerboard ends right over here. You can see that. And then you also have the bridge. Now, you want to follow the bow as a straight line. Now, my point of reference is the bow hair. So I'm gonna just maybe zoom in over here so that way you can see my eyes are lined up at this point to the straight line of the bridge. So I'm following that visible line on a down bow, on an up bow. And if I go down this way, I can see that my bow is crooked. If I go up bow this way, I can see that the line on the edge of the hair is also it's not parallel. So you want the lines to be absolutely parallel. And if we're meeting for the first time, my name is Eric and I am your guide to helping you become a better violinist. If you liked this tip, make sure that you're commenting down below, join the community of fellow violin learners. And if you're wanting to learn more about violin playing, then I encourage you to take a look at some of these videos right over here.